He's an MLB analyst for DraftKings. We welcome Steve Buchanan back to the DHA Morning Jolt. Steve, how are you? Good morning.
Hey, appreciate seeing you again, and thanks for having me on.
So we're about 60-something games into the season. For you, what's been the biggest surprise so far?
Wow, I mean, honestly, there's so many avenues that we could go here. I think for me, it might have to be the Texas Rangers at this point. They are in first place in the American League West. They have one of the biggest run differentials in the entire league. Like, that offense has just been so incredibly good. I believe at this juncture, they're averaging just under 7 runs per game. And that's like incredible when you think about, we still have over 100 games left in the MLB season. And for that offense to be as good as they are has really been something. And this is all without Jacob deGrom, who's done, like, going to get Tommy John. And like, you would think for any team that would be such a massive blow, and you would never want to lose Jacob deGrom, but it's almost just like they'll probably be okay without him, which is kind of wild to think about. So I think the Rangers are one of like 4 or 5 teams that you could point out at this point.
And with deGrom, I think they were probably, based on his last couple of years, they were only going to get 80 innings from him anyway.
Right.
So, like you say, how much would that really affect them?
Right.
For me, the Rangers are a big surprise, and the Pirates. I'm loving what they're doing in Pittsburgh.
No, it's been something too, and like, they've been bouncing in and out of first place throughout the year. And you look at that whole division has just been a whole cluster, right? It's just been, I don't think if you told me the order of what it's in the beginning of June, that's how it would pan out, I'd be like, you're out of your mind. But like, Milwaukee's in first place. They have a negative run differential. The Pirates are the only team that has a plus run differential at this point. Like, that's something I never would have thought of. And they're only about, a couple games out of first place at this point. So they've been great. I don't know if they have the talent in the team to sustain this type of run that they're on. But to be fair, we're early in the month of June, and they're still very much in contention. They're in a wild card spot as of right now. So it's been something for Pittsburgh. That's definitely another team you can bring up when you talk about surprising starts.
And you just tweeted the other day that the Marlins are the luckiest team in baseball right now.
I can't believe this. I mean, they are in second place with like a negative 30 run differential at this point. And on MLB.com, they have this thing where basically they tell you what the record would be based on the runs allowed and runs scored. And their record is basically flipped. They're an under 500 team. They shouldn't be anywhere close to second place. So like, truly, like, when you say what's been the biggest surprise, like I mentioned, like, you could name 5 different teams in this league right now. We didn't even talk about the Padres. Like, there's just so many odd and surprising starts that a lot of these teams have been going through at this point.
Biggest disappointment so far? You just mentioned the Padres. They have to be one of them. Or what else?
Yeah, I think the Padres is the easy answer. The Cardinals should also very much be in that conversation. I still like them to win the division, even though they're one of the worst records in Major League Baseball. But like, that team is built. That team is very talented. They got a good pitching staff. They got a stellar offense. I just can't pinpoint, and I don't think they can either, what's going on with this team, because like, they were one of like the shoo-ins to get into the playoffs this year, and now they have some of the longer odds in the National League to make the playoffs. So it's really been puzzling what's been going on with them, but they're just another team that is like, I feel like once it starts clicking, then that team's just going to go on a run. And that whole division has been pretty poor to begin with. Like, we're talking about them being in last place, but like, they're not out of it by any means. And that's even with one of the worst records in the National League, because that whole league has been bad. So they're definitely not out of it, but like, what a unbelievably bad start for a team that has been a juggernaut really in that division for the past 5 or 6 years at this point.
Speaking of not being out of it, but boy, you got to wonder what's going on. The Mets have been up and down. They've got a weekend series with the Pirates. Then they've got the Yankees for a couple, and then they have the Cardinals. And the Cardinals are a team they have to beat up on, Steve.
You would think. And when you look at this schedule, you feel like, that the Mets should be in control for this month, but they have a really tough schedule really in the month of June. Like you mentioned, a couple of teams that they have coming up, and then they still have to face the Astros. The Phillies are another team that could give them some trouble too as well. So it's an odd time for the Mets, because it's like when they start to go up on this hill, then it's like they're right back down. And it's like they just can't get like some consistent production out of the offense, or like they're getting a bad night out of Scherzer or something. Like there's just been so much inconsistency. And it almost feels like it all started at the World Baseball Classic when it was announced that Diaz was going to miss the entire season. And that was just like a bad omen to start the year, because it's like, okay, you never want to lose someone like Diaz, but you know what? We are deep enough that we'll be able to make up for that. And, we're going to score a ton of runs. So everything is going to be okay. It just never was okay to start. And in that division, that's not a division you can really like afford to have these skids on, because Atlanta's in there. The Phillies have been playing to their potential, but they got a good team. Miami is in second place. Like this is just all things that you can't afford to be going through at this point. So, the trade deadline is going to be very, very interesting, because there's a lot of teams that are still very much in it, even though their record doesn't show it. But the National League, like I said, has just been really poor performing overall. So we all know how crazy the owner is, Uncle Steve over there. So I imagine they're not going to throw up the white flag anytime soon, but this has been probably as worse of a start as they could have imagined.
And speaking of a rough division, the Yankees are in one that is wild. Just about I think everybody's over 500. They have the Red Sox this weekend, then the Mets, we just mentioned that, and then the Red Sox again. And the Yankees have been fighting off injuries left and right. Now we've got Judge out. They haven't even said how long he's out for. Cortez, he's not going to even throw a baseball for at least 10 days, if not 2 weeks. And you wonder, like, how much trouble are they going to be in, especially with how good that division has been.
Well, that's the thing too, is like, it doesn't feel like they're ever going to run out the full roster that they intended to, because, we haven't even seen Carlos Rodon at all. Who knows when we're going to see him. You just mentioned Cortez is going to go down. I'd imagine he's probably going to be done until at least the All-Star break, because if he's not going to be throwing for at least another week and a half, he's got to make bullpen sessions. He's got to make minor league starts. Like, you're kind of pushing towards, the beginning of July at that point. So the problem is just, so they're getting all these guys injured, and then the guys who are on the field haven't been performing. Like Garrett Cole just came off a really bad month of May, which was preceded by a stellar month of April. But May came around, it's unbelievably good. It's like, all right, here's that Cy Young Garrett Cole that we're used to seeing. Then he reverts to the complete opposite in the month of May, like giving up 8 home runs that month after giving up none in the month of April. Like, it was a really bad month for him. It doesn't feel like they have that guy right now that can step up and really kind of push this team forward. And luckily for them, the schedule they have coming up isn't terrible. Like, they're going to see Texas soon, which we just talked about how good they have been, but it's tough right now because they're not having all those guys on the field at the same time. And I mean, you look at that lineup, like Willie Calhoun was hitting cleanup the other day. I said, what planet are we on where Willie Calhoun is your cleanup hitter for the 2023 New York Yankees? Never would have had that one on the bingo card. So that just really kind of feels, and it is like a way of showing like just how this team is struggling with injuries right now.
Follow him on Twitter at SBuchanan24, the number 24, SBuchanan24. Steve Buchanan, MLB analyst for DraftKings. As always, thanks for joining us. Love talking baseball with you.
Hey, anytime, Jim. I appreciate it. Thank you.